In our final video, we're going to take a look at how we can turn absolute quantities into relative quantities in Excel. So we're going to come back to the data I gathered from my performance on Duolingo in Russian. Recall that Duolingo classified my work with individual words as still strong, pretty good, time to practice, and overdue. I have 1,908 words that are considered still strong, 89 words that are pretty good, 77 words for which it is time to practice, and 288 words that are overdue. Each of those are absolute figures. We've got the number, and the units are words in the category. It'd be nice to convert these to percentages. That way we can have some relative figures. First thing I want to mention is that these words are called frequencies, as we'll talk about in the next video. So I'm just going to put frequency in here. Then what we would like to calculate for the percentages is called relative frequency. So we don't say absolute frequency, but when we say the word frequency on its own, it's implied that this is an absolute frequency. Notice I continue to drag the line between column labels in order to make the cells big enough to have the terms I want. So as we said before at the beginning, a relative quantity is a ratio, often expressed in a percentage. So with a ratio, we're comparing two numbers. So what do I want to compare 1,908 to? How about 89? How about 77? How about 288? When we're talking about the frequency with which such a category arises, relative frequency looks at the frequency relative to the total number of words. So in an earlier video, we added that total. Let's do it again. So good Excel practice, give yourself a row called total, give a label. Since total is not one of our categories, I put it in bold. And now recall to add everything up, we simply highlight everything we want to add, plus the cell in which we want the sum deposited in. And then in the upper right-hand corner where it says auto sum with that sigma, we click. And now we've got our total. So our relative frequencies are a comparison we obtain by dividing the frequency by the total. So how do we divide? Well, we're going to put a formula into Excel, and we're going to put in the equal sign, and then we use our cell reference. So my frequency is in cell B2. Divide is this slash, same place the question mark is on the keyboard. And then my total that I'm comparing to is in cell B6. And I get this decimal. This decimal is what we get when we divide. That's 0.80779. I'll ignore the rest. And to turn that into a percentage, we multiply by 100, which, because we're using a place value system based on powers of 10, we move the decimal to the right by 2 points. So that's 80.779%. Then what we do is we take the cell, we grab this lower right-hand corner, and we drag to calculate the percentages for each category. Now, I want to caution you, we're about to get an error, and you're going to see why in a minute, and then I'm going to show you how to fix the error. But I didn't want to just show you out of nowhere, because then there's no context, and if it were me, I'd say, why is he doing that? So let's drag and drop, and let's see what the error is. So this is a division by zero error, right? And you may recall, you may not, but division by zero doesn't produce anything. Right? It's a problem. And so Excel throws an error. Now you might ask, why are we dividing by zero? Aren't we dividing by B6 every time, 2,362? Well, let's go to show formulas. So remember, that's in the formulas menu, and in the ribbon, a little to the right of center, show formulas button. And now let's take a look at these cells. and take a look at what Excel is doing. It is moving the cell reference up a row every time we drag down. So while B2 converts to B3, converts to B4, converts to B5, which is what we want Excel to do, we do not want Excel changing B6 to B7 to B8 to B9. Notice if we go into column B, B7, B8, B9 are empty, which Excel interprets as 0. So you see the problem? Here's how to fix it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back into this cell. So you can see, because it's hard to see what's in the formula bar, I'm just going to retype the whole thing. So we type equals, because Excel's a formula is coming, B2, that's that reference. Continue to divide, but now for B6, what we do is we put a $sign around in front of B and a $sign in front of 6. What that tells Excel to do is it holds constant as we drag both the B and the 6. Now, no change in that first relative frequency, of course, because there wasn't a problem there, but now I'm going to drag and drop. And now we're okay, right? Because if we go back to show formulas, what Excel did was it changed my numerator, right? B2, B3, B4, B5. That is, we're changed the frequency that we're comparing, which is what we want, but it left alone the total, which is also what we wanted to do, comparing to the same total every time. So bottom line here, a couple of things to take away. First, quick review that when we want to generate percentages, relative frequencies for data in categories, well, we're going to need the total. We compare the number in a given category to the total to get our percentage. And the second point is in Excel, if you want to keep the number in the cell constant, you have to use those cell references with the $signs. Three last points. One, notice I did not drag all the way down to total. We could, but that result is somewhat meaningless. However, let's do that just to see what happens. Notice we get a 1. That's a bit of a sanity check, right? In other words, if we compare the total number of words to the total number of words by dividing, we should get 1 or 100%. But that number doesn't mean things. We will also see later that when we make graphs and charts of these data, we should avoid including the total because it skews the scale. The final point, so that was 2 points. One that I didn't drag to the total, but you can, and the second point being you can to get a sanity check. And the last point I'm going to make is you can make these actually look by percentages. So remember percentages, percent per 100. Per 100, we want this over 100. Move the decimal to the right 2 places, but Excel can do that for us and put a little percent sign. So I've gone back to the home ribbon. Over here in the middle of the ribbon, you see how it formats numbers. So I can select percent to convert them as a percentage. Now notice it automatically rounded to the nearest percent. We can actually get more or less accuracy by pointing to these little arrows over here. So if I want more 1 decimal place accuracy, I click that button once. I can get more. I can get fewer by going to the right where it says decrease decimal as well. That concludes this video. In the next section, we are going to talk about different types of data from a different perspective. Categorical versus quantitative.